Good morning, everyone. We're really glad you're here today. I'm delighted to have Marie Clarke, the Vice President of Global Programs with Women for Women International. And this is going to be a different kind of program than many we've had. I think we're talking about some really critical issues. So I'm so glad you're here. Please go ahead and share your information on chat. Who are you and what do you do? And then we are in webinar format. We do that so that we can videotape the program, and we get a lot of people watching the program after the fact. We'll provide a chance for you guys to get to know each other on October 29th. We do this once a month, and this is a networking session where people get a chance to really get to know each other. Quickly, Purse Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women who make 80% of all purchasing decisions would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and we would do that in mass, and if we could create a funding stream for battered women's shelters in the process, that we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So that's what Purse Power is trying to do. And quickly, the purpose of these calls, we're trying to connect you with national leaders like Marie here today, and connect you with each other and get through this difficult time with coronavirus. I want to shout out to any of my board members that are online or investors. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I'll introduce Marie. Please go ahead and again, share your comments via chat. And I would appreciate if you go ahead and put any questions you have as they come up for you in the Q&A block, and we'll try to incorporate those in the conversation. Okay, Marie, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
And it's nice to see those of you who have joined.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so again, Marie is the Vice President for Global Programs at Women for Women International. And prior to this position, she served as an ActionAid USA's Executive Director and a member of various global leadership bodies for the ActionAid International Federation. She's got over 20 years of experience in global development, human rights, and economic justice. She also serves as the Northern Civil Society representative on the steering committee of the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, which was created by the G20 for donor countries and institutions to invest in client country agriculture and food security programs. Very important. She's also been quoted on issues of women's rights, agriculture, energy, and international economic justice in the Financial Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and other publications, and has appeared on CNN and CNN International, BBC, Voice of America, and other news networks. You're amazing. I'm delighted to have you here today. Thank you so much.
It's nice to be here.
Okay, to start, we always want to get to know you. Can you give us a little bit about your background and how you arrived at this place in your life and career?
Sure. Well, I grew up actually internationally. And so I had an opportunity just in growing up in Eastern Europe and in the old Soviet Union, and then later in the Middle East, to get a real feel for the diversity of challenges that women face around the world. Wow. And so after I went to university in the US, I really sought to have a career that could help benefit especially people who are on the losing end of history and of decisions and of society. And so really decided to invest myself initially in economic justice work and anti-poverty work. And then as I grew out into my career, realized that the people who are so often the most affected by crises, and especially economic crises or political crises or conflict, are women and their families. And so really started to hone my focus in on strengthening women's power to be able to not only survive, but thrive in this world and to build stronger equality. And so Women for Women was a great match for me. I, in ActionAid, had spent 10 years almost working in a feminist approach to development work and to anti-poverty work. And what I loved about the idea of Women for Women was that our mission is really specific and focused. Like, we work with women survivors of war in places of conflict. When we work really especially with the ultra poor women survivors of war, those who are most marginalized. Most of the women in our program are survivors of sexual violence and facing gender-based violence in their lives. They're ultra poor. Many of them are illiterate. Some of them are single heads of household. And to see the transformation that happens in their lives through this program, it has been incredible. And having lived in places of conflict in my life, I know what the impact is for women. And so to be able to provide something that is empowering, investing in women's ability to build their own businesses and to have stronger decision making. You were talking about purse power. I mean, one of the things we measure is a woman's agency to determine how that family budget is being spent, what they're spending their money on, and building out spaces for women to spend their money buying each other's products. And so I think it's a natural extension of what you're hoping to do at this big national and global level. We're doing at that micro level in some of the hardest places that it is to be a woman. So that was what was attractive to me about Women for Women. And then the other thing that was really important to me about choosing Women for Women is that we are run in each country by local teams. So we're completely and deeply embedded in the places where we work. And that's absolutely important for sustainability of a program, for making sure your interventions match the needs of women. And so that was another piece that was really a draw for me about Women for Women.
Well, and I'd like to hear more about what you do with Women for Women, if you don't mind. What kinds of programs do you have?
So when we enter into a community, we really look for women who are not only survivors of the conflict that is raging in that area and who are ultra poor and could most benefit from our program. And then we have a 12-month really holistic program that women go through. The first piece of that is a series of modules about understanding your own rights, recovering from the trauma, building out your agency as a woman in the household and in your community. Then it starts to shift into that economic empowerment. So some basic numeracy, some understanding of what's the market. We provide vocational training, so women will decide if everything from an agricultural track to hair braiding to beekeeping, soap making. So in each country, it's a different set of options that women can choose, and they are trained in that vocation. And then after they graduate, we can help support them into launching their own business initiative, working with each other to be able to launch or grow that business. Women save and lend to each other. So we create what's almost like mini banks, right? These village saving and loan communities. And we find that women, even after this year-long holistic program have graduated, that they'll stick together for decades, still lending and saving to one another. Because again, these are sort of last mile communities, don't have a lot of access. There's not a lot of financial inclusion for women in our program. And so in a way, it's creating a little mini banking structure and mini markets for these women to be able to survive and thrive. And they're grouped in this program in groups of 25. And at the point of graduation, a year into our program, they elect amongst each other a couple of change agents. And those women that have been elected by their group work with other change agents to tackle some of the issues that they see in their community. So it might be they want to have greater access to healthcare, or maybe they want to have change a social norm that's harmful to girls or to women in the community. So those change agents are, again, they work together and they continue making change. And we see that sustaining for a long time. In fact, in Rwanda, we had the idea it would be great to gather graduates together and just, make a call out, see who comes. And so they made this call out to graduates of the program and said, come, let's be together, sort of imagining maybe 100 women would show up, and had created a space for, 100 women to show up. And 1,000 women showed up, and they couldn't fit into this space. So then they said, well, obviously there's a desire to reconnect. And so let's have an outdoor space and get a PA system. And now let's make another call and see who we get. And they thought, maybe we'll get this 1,000 women to come out. And over 10,000 women showed up for this.
Oh my gosh.
10,000 women from all over Rwanda, where we had been working, came together because that is the level of connection to one another that they had built over that period of time, and that desire and need for women to come together and to support one another, and appreciation for the transformation of that program. And so we can see the power in in that purse, really.
That is incredible. That is incredible. And I know you told me that you think that there's like 260 million women in this position worldwide.
Yeah, so if we were to just keep focused on that little tiny slice of people,
Mhm.
women who are conflict affected, surviving war, ultra poor, facing deep discrimination as women, we estimate there are about 260 million women who would be eligible for our program.
Holy smokes. Wow. All right. You're getting, so let's see here. Jeremy Solomon is saying that's incredible. Thank you for doing this work with women, genocide survivors here in Rwanda. So
Ah,
somebody
yay.
who's familiar with that program. All right. So it's interesting. You work with women all over the world. I'm interested in what similarities and differences you see between US women and other women.
I mean, fundamentally, we all face the same challenges, right?
Mhm,
We
mhm.
have very radically different, perhaps, depending on who we are in terms of US women and where we live and how we've grown up. We might have different circumstances around us, but many of those same challenges are what can unite us across the globe. And I think when I think especially about you were speaking earlier to me about and saying on this program about the importance of addressing things like gender-based violence or domestic violence. Let's just take domestic violence as one challenge that so many women in our world face. If you listen to women who were struggling with living with an abusive partner in northern Nigeria or in eastern Congo or any of the places where we work, they speak about the same fears, like fear to leave the partner because of being ostracized, fear of what to face with their partner, shame, feelings of shame.
Mm.
But if you speak to an American woman who is a survivor of domestic violence, she'll often say the same thing. You know, the
Mm.
question's always coming, why don't you leave this person who is abusive to you? And the answers are so often the same answers, right? Fear, shame, self-doubt, self-loathing, all of that is a part of domestic violence that has to be broken in order for women to be able to leave an abusive situation or to be able to de-escalate and manage an abusive situation. And so I think at core, we see some of those same human experiences, even amongst wealthy, powerful, privileged people,
Mhm.
as well as those who have no other options and no other choices.
Mhm, mhm. Well, it's interesting. My undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I wanted to work in a shelter, in a battered women's shelter, and took some training on that. And apparently, women are in the most danger within the 2 years after they leave someone. So
Mm,
you get people not leaving, and people don't understand why. But I don't think we have the whole story, right? Or understand the risk they may be in.
right, exactly.
Mm.
And those skills to be able to de-escalate conflict in the home are so critical and life-saving for someone who is in a relationship that has been or can escalate to becoming abusive. And it's interesting because globally during the coronavirus pandemic, we did see an uptick in domestic violence. If you look at the statistics in the US and globally. But when we did our own surveys of our own program and participants in our own program in different countries, in Nigeria in particular, we saw really interesting results where in some cases there was an increase for some women of violence with a partner that had been abusive before. And in other cases, they actually saw a decrease of violence, that their de-escalation tactics were working, and also that being at home and working together to face this common challenge of this pandemic that was impacting their lives and livelihood actually bonded the couple together in a new way, and they found new ways to communicate with one another. And that was really fascinating to me. And it also speaks to the importance of when engaging in programming focused on women, needing to be able to really understand what it means to take gender transformative tactics and actions to enable that change to happen for women.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to just put in a plug because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Apparently, 1 out of 4 women is impacted by this in their adult lifetime, from what I understand.
Mm.
And if you're facing this, please call the national hotline, or the YWCA can help you. I don't know if you have some other resources you want to share.
Yeah, no, I think those would be 2 places. to engage. But I think also women engaging with women. I mean, speaking to a friend, speaking to someone who's in your community. I have seen really some interesting over the course of my career. So not only at Women for Women, but more broadly, where women coming together, especially in resource poor communities where there's a lot of stigma about leaving a relationship, or where violence is so normalized that it's not even seen as domestic violence. There are surveys that we've done at Women for Women that show that it can be a common perception, even amongst law enforcement, as well as the population, that if you burn a dinner, it's not considered an act of domestic violence to beat someone who burned the dinner, right? So the normalization of violence can be so pervasive in communities. But when women band together and address it together, it gives them a strength that enables them to address some of those deeply harmful social norms, and to be able to hold people to account in a way that sometimes the legal structures don't even allow for.
Good point. Really good point. Okay. Let's see here. So your program builds women's economic power in the home and enables her to earn an income. Can you tell us a story of what that impact means for women in your program?
Yeah. I mean, it can be so incredibly transformative for women to be able to harness their economic power, and to be able to grow out their savings and their earnings. And it can be incredibly life-saving when something else goes awry, whether it's an increasing conflict or a pandemic. And I was thinking, actually, since we were just talking about the impact of the pandemic and the Northern Nigerian partners, it reminds me that in the early stages of the pandemic, when Nigerian states were locking down markets and saying that you couldn't sell, how women banded together and then used some of their savings to support the livelihood of widows that had not been in the program and that needed that support. So they were not only able to survive the pandemic themselves, but they were actually gifting resources to those who were less vulnerable in the community. But women, when they talk about the experience of being able to earn their own resources and have their own buildings, like, you should just see their faces as they light up and talk about how they are able to provide schooling to their girl children who had not been able to go to school because they couldn't afford the school fees, how they were able to create a space. There was one woman in Eastern Congo that I was speaking with, and she had to live with her mother-in-law and her husband, and it was really tight quarters, and she really needed to have a little bit of space, as you can imagine. And so she was proudly showing me this house that they were building, perched on this tiny hill in far Eastern Congo. That could be the house that she and her husband and her future children would be able to live in. And I think that ability to be the one that is building the house for women in places where they're deeply marginalized is just incredibly transformative.
Very good. All right, so we've got a question. Okay, let's see here. We've got a male activist asking what he can do to help. I might as well go ahead and bring it up. So he's a gender equity person, and he's wondering what men can do to help.
Great. Yeah. So we actually have a men's engagement program that we run in our communities where we work as well. But in Rwanda, Women for Women Rwanda is its own organization. It has its own Rwandese board, fully Rwandese staff, and also a women's opportunity center, which is a place where women entrepreneurs come and learn new skills together and sell together. They sell to tourists that are on their way to visit the gorillas and the national parks in Rwanda. So lots of opportunities to get involved, and would really encourage you to connect up with Women for Women Rwanda and find opportunities as a volunteer, perhaps to be able to even join our team. And it is, again, a completely Rwandese organization run by a really incredible Rwandese board.
Amazing, amazing. All right. So since you work with women survivors of war, can you talk about how your programs contribute to peace building?
Yeah, so when we were speaking a minute ago about those skills around de-escalating conflict and being able to to address challenges that are coming up maybe in the home. Those same skills are so critical to de-escalating conflict in communities as well. Every interaction that you have can be an interaction that's going to escalate or de-escalate conflict. So when you're working in places that have a live active conflict, those skills are so incredible. But I'm also thinking about the importance in some contexts, but not in all contexts, of a program like ours that can knit together people on opposite sides of a conflict. So in some of the countries, we'll have people who, if the conflict is a religious conflict or a conflict between different ethnicities or between being a herder or a farmer, we'll knit the women together in those groups of 25. So they're learning and having this transformational experience together. And it reminds me actually of one place in northern Nigeria in Plateau State, where I was with a group of women who were doing some of the economic literacy part of our program. And these two women were sitting next together. One clearly a Muslim woman from a community that does herding, and another woman, a Christian woman who has from a farming family. And they were so proud to talk to me about how they had figured out how they were going to come into business together and have a shop together that sold various different sort of basic needs things, and that they were going to corner the market because as a Christian and a Muslim working together, they could be open 7 days a week. They would get Muslim and Christian clients, and they would be able to sell the things that each of those communities needed and wanted. And they were so ready to conquer the market in that small community and in that small town. But what's most profound is that when you have that relationship with someone, and women, we know that when women bond together and have that type of relationship with each other, they influence their families and they influence their communities, and in that way build more peaceful societies. And oftentimes our change agents will want to tackle an issue around that they feel like is core to building peace in their communities as their focus point. And so we've been able to see incredible things. And like in Afghanistan, just to see how women have been in the past wanting to be able to engage. We've worked with, we used to work with an organization that had strong ties to the efforts around building out peace processes in that space. And just to see the women wanting to sign up and to tap in and to engage and have their voice heard in that context is just really powerful.
Amazing. Well, that warms my heart. And when we had talked about setting up this meeting, I know people are curious about Afghanistan, and I know you can't talk that openly about it. I don't know if there's anything that you can share about what's going on there and how we can help.
Yeah, just to say that I think it's fair to say that there is a looming humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan beyond the political crisis of the change of government, which has been so dominant in the US news. But what we know globally is that when it is too dangerous to farm, or when there is deep conflict and extreme violence, that hunger is sure to follow because people can't harvest. And so we're going into the fall. Afghanistan is a country that has a very intense winter and hot summer. And so we are expecting to see only increasing food prices and food shortages. And so urgent humanitarian need is there. And so we are very much hoping that we will be able to be contributing into the needs of women and be able to provide things that they need to survive this really intense humanitarian crisis.
Is there anything that we can do to support that effort?
Yes, absolutely. We're running a huge campaign on our website, and you can contribute there. Cash is king in a crisis. And we are one of the types of organizations that's been able to transfer cash to women. And so that is one of the pieces that's needed. We're also looking forward to being able to provide kitchen garden kits and other sort of really basic first line needs for women. And the great thing about kitchen gardens, especially in a place like Afghanistan, where in some of the communities women have much less mobility, than in other communities is that it's something that you can cultivate in your home. It's nutritious and you have full control over that cultivation. And so we talk about that as like food sovereignty, being able to be really able to produce for your family. And that's so critical. And it's something that the women were telling us that they wanted even before the new government took over and took power.
Wow. Okay. And give your website, will you?
Yes, it's womenforwomen.org. And so if you go on that, you'll see our huge campaign around Afghanistan, but also get a chance to learn more about the work that's happening all over the world. Women for Women works directly in many countries, but we also have something called a conflict response fund. And that fund enables us to support partners in places that have an acute conflict. So like right now in Ethiopia, in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, there is a huge crisis. And even just in the last couple of days, it has been getting worse. And so we, through that conflict response fund, are able to support partners that are in the center of that crisis to be responding. And speaking of violence against women, I think that had become a real hallmark of the conflict in Tigray, Ethiopia, where really mass atrocities of rape, of gang rape, really horrifying accounts that are coming out of the pervasiveness of use of rape as a weapon of war. So the intervention that we have with our partners is explicitly targeting women who are survivors of sexual violence from that conflict and enabling them not only to have their immediate needs met, but also to help support them to be integrated into their families and into their communities, because they're like many places in the world, if not most places in the world, there is so much stigma around rape that the work has to be not only to support the survivor, but to support her community, to be able to welcome her back into that community and to dispel some of the social norms and mores around sexual violence. And so it's going to be important for them to be able to have the type of support that they need, again, to really address sort of the deeper underlying undercurrents around sexual violence.
That is so horrific. That is so horrific, man. All right. Okay, so you talked about that. Let's see here. So how are things different for countries that have female soldiers? What challenges do they face that are unique?
Well, this is not a huge area of our expertise, but I can say that that war is devastating to everyone who is involved. It's devastating to the soldiers as well as to those who are disproportionately impacted, which tend to be women. So we will see, for example, if you look at, for example, ISIS or ISIS-K in Afghanistan right now, it's a global organization that actually employs female soldiers, but also—
I didn't know that.
So women can join ISIS. They can take part in suicide bombings. They can be supporting the ISIS organization, but they have no rights as women within those relationships or within the caliphate that they seek to establish in the different places. So allowing women to be soldiers doesn't reflect that there's a lack of patriarchy in that culture or in that movement or in that conflict, whatever it is. Women soldiers are more vulnerable to sexual assault from their male counterparts, and the opposition that they are fighting. It's a precarious place to be. But I think that, again, it doesn't represent any less existence of deep inequality or patriarchy, whether the women are soldiers or not.
Very interesting. Wow. Okay, guys, think of your questions. Go ahead and put them in the Q&A block. Let's see here. I guess that the Senate is considering some legislation that would require women to register for selective service in the U.S. In the event of a war or national emergency. They could be drafted. Without getting political, given your knowledge of the impact on women, what are your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I think we already have women who are soldiers in the United States, and while women tend, it seems, to be less likely to inflict sexual violence as a weapon of war, it's also seen even amongst female soldiers. We've had examples that have come out of Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo of sexual violence on inmates that are perpetrated by women as well as men. So I think that women who choose to become soldiers have different challenges. We have been seeing a lot of reporting lately about the level of sexual violence against women soldiers by male soldiers in this country. And so we see some of the same, again, we're seeing play out within that context, some of the same things that we see play out globally for women.
Holy smokes. Okay, Jane Beckendorf is asking, is the address womenforwomen.org or women for? It's with for, F-O-U-R or F-O-R?
Yes, womenforwomen.org.
Okay, do you want to put it in the chat? That would be helpful, if you don't mind.
Happy to do it.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask the next question. Let me do that. Okay, so then imagine is what it looks like. Does Women for Women work extend to refugee camps and into uprooted communities as well? Yeah,
so the program that we run is sort of best suited for people who are in a stable place, because we run this 12-month program. In some cases, we've run it in smaller number of months. In South Sudan, when we returned South Sudan's an example of where our entire staff and all of the women participants in our program at one point had to flee violence and fled into Uganda and then started to migrate back. And so because our staff is in completely local staff and completely embedded in the communities, the staff and the participants fled together. And when we came back, we had a shorter program in order to be able to kind of catch up women and pick up where we had left off. But we do find that when a community has been displaced, often into, whether it's as refugees into another country or internally displaced, if they're living especially in a refugee camp environment, that there is a lot of downtime. And so in places like Iraq, we have built out some of our programming in conjunction with UNHCR and are serving Syrian refugee women, for example, with those programming. And it's a little bit more complicated because each country has different rules about rights to work for their refugee populations. In some countries, they're allowed to work, in some countries they aren't. But those schools and the skills that we are building and that transformation is still important. And so, yeah, and I think in Afghanistan, there was some immediate response before the fall of Kabul entirely to the Taliban and the establishment of the new government. People were fleeing from different rural areas and coming to city centers like Kabul or Jalalabad or other places. And in those immediate times, the staff were really excited and engaged to engage those internally displaced people and to be able to provide for some of their immediate needs as internally displaced people. And so that was something that was able to happen sort of initially before the full takeover happened.
Holy smokes. All right. Case Lane is asking, can you speak some more about the entrepreneurial programs you have for women to start their own businesses in poor countries? And what have you seen working really well in different countries?
So since I know we have someone from Rwanda on, I will celebrate Rwanda for a minute and just say that it is really important for those vocational tracks to match where there's a market. And one of the things that is a strong and people really love in Rwanda is to have the vocational tracks that enable sewing and tailoring to make dresses and beautiful like place settings and beadwork and weaving baskets and all of that, which is great not only for the tourist trade in Rwanda, but also really practical things that people need. And so there's a great market for these products. And what was really exciting in the time of COVID lockdowns was that our Women's Opportunity Center and women that were a part of this vocational track started sewing masks and creating masks. And then eventually we're able, by working with each other and working with Women for Women Rwanda, to get even into the whole national supply chain for masks for the country. So talk about something that can start as a really small, just a few women in a room together making masks and become something really huge. That was a great example of that.
Wow. Well, all right. Any other questions, you guys? I'm going to ask her this while you come up with more. So what do you need most from us as women entrepreneurs, women leaders? What's the most helpful thing that we could do for you?
Yeah, well, we need your support, and it would be great to connect you in. We have a sponsorship program, which is enabling women to sponsor women to go through our program, and you get essentially a pen pal as a result of that, and you get a chance to really get to know that woman that you are sponsoring and to share your words with them. And I've been to visit programs in almost every country where we work. And in each case, women are so proud to show me letters that they get from their sponsors. And so that sense of like, you can be trying to start your business or build your business and trying to find a way to make it work. And sometimes it feels like it's taking forever, it's not working. And you really need that friend that's going to boost your morale and tell you that you should keep going and keep moving. That's what those letters feel like to the women. They'll save each letter from their sponsor in like a special place. It becomes a prized possession. So as important as the investment in generating women entrepreneurs and generating more economically empowered women in the countries where we work, is that solidarity, is that message of support that keeps them going when times are tough.
Yeah. Well, the entrepreneurial journey is just not easy. I had a graph on my wall that was like, this is what it's like, for everybody. You have your ups and downs, you're about ready to give up, and then something good happens. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? All right. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I see another one. Okay, so Elena Zucker is saying maybe a peer mentoring system would be helpful for the women, even I guess if they're in different countries.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, mentoring is something that we've been testing. In fact, in the development sector, like the most robust type of test that you can do to see if your program is actually delivering is called a random control trial, right? And we've even been able to participate. We have a third one coming to fruition now in some of these most difficult contexts to work, and really to test the impact of our program. And our own monitoring and evaluating is really important to be able to ensure that we're really tracking that increase in her agency and her income and her savings and her power, and find that all of these forms of evaluation are proving that we're really working. So one of the things that recently we've been testing is different types of mentoring. And so mentoring, that's peer mentoring, mentoring with individuals, mentoring in groups. And so we're really excited to sort of see what the impact is of those different approaches to this question of mentoring. We've talked a lot for a long time about trying to link graduates across the globe. And I think that has been a little bit more challenging just in thinking about if for that sort of one-on-one type of peer mentoring, largely because of language barriers more than anything else. So Kosovo and Bosnia their language is similar enough, but Kosovo and Rwanda be a little harder, or South Sudan. And so that can be a little bit more complicated, but we are really interested in finding new ways to provide mentoring for women in the program and the graduates.
Very good. Yeah, we had Dr. Terry Neese on a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about some of the mentoring that they do with Rwandans and Afghanistanis from women in the U.S. in terms of partnering them. So that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, we got more. So we got all kinds of questions I didn't see, guys. I'm sorry. As a follow-on to my question, work with refugees or displaced people. Your work is so needed and impactful. I'm sure you've thought of and maybe are doing this, but it'd be great to have a similar program in the diasporas. I don't know what that is, where refugees settle. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in the diaspora, I think that's incredible. This actually just came up as an idea. One of our Afghan staff that was able to leave the country, she was particularly at risk, is now in the UK and seeing in real time what it is like to be a refugee in the United Kingdom for an Afghan woman and the other Afghan women and the needs that they have that are really particular, even in that context. And so she was provoking us a bit as well on this. And I think it's something that we have really explored more in the countries where we're working than in the US or in Europe. And there's so many incredible agencies in the US and Europe that work on refugee resettlement and all of that. But I do take your point that making sure that there is that niche of really gender transformative interventions within those refugee resettlement spaces and refugee resettlement communities is so important. And for Afghanistan, the closest partner that we have that's really engaged in supporting Afghan women within their resettlement is it's almost the same name as ours, but it's actually a separate organization. It's an organization called Women for Afghan Women, and really promote them in terms of, especially for that refugee crisis, as an incredible organization that's really meeting the needs of refugee women in the US.
Wow. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So basically, Elena Zucker is offering to contact you directly and share some ideas around the mentoring.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Jeremy Solomons is saying, what specific lessons and best practices have you learned from women overseas that could help US women in terms of social, cultural, and economic barriers to equality?
I think sometimes I feel like I'm just a storyteller linking people's stories. I just got to say that some of the women that have been through transformative programs of ours in other countries, their tenacity and creativity and ability to like string together things to make something bigger than it is just incredible. And I think poverty and exclusion and racism and all of those things that can tear women down in the US and in Western countries can really keep women from having that sort of tenacity, and it can be hard to be motivated. They're already having to be resilient all the time. So just can be overwhelming and exhausting. And I wish I could bottle some of the like enthusiasm and creativity and energy that we'll see in some of the participants and graduates of our program. Just to bottle that dancing literally and singing and excitement and enable that to infuse women who are struggling in other contexts, because I think it's a real gift.
Oh gosh, it is. It is. And the one thing I've heard is with women and entrepreneurship, it's all about staying with it. Just to your point, resilience is the key to success. Yeah.
And I think we kind of get this illusion that we build resilience, and that people who are actually having to put that resilience into practice all the time can get a little frustrated with that. It's like, actually, we are already demonstrating so much resilience. But I do think that building out lines of solidarity that enable the person who is feeling empowered to share that sense and feeling and experience with someone when they're feeling down, and then have that shared back when because like you said, there's these ups and downs. That's such an important and powerful way for us to be in struggle together.
Absolutely. Well, this has been empowering, and it's been an emotional program for me for some reason. I'm really glad you're here, and I'm really thankful for the work that you're doing. Okay, so normally we ask people at the end of the day, what would you like us to have learned from you? Give us our top 3 learnings from you.
We're all in this together. So we women and our male allies, you who are joining in from Rwanda, we're all in this together, and we're stronger when we're together. And when we are stronger together, we build stronger communities and stronger nations. That in crises and in the very intense places that we work, we need to not only hand over humanitarian aid, we need to be able to provide gender transformative investments in women. And those are the things that they will take with them if they become an IDP, an internally displaced person, or a refugee, that they will take with them if they stay through that conflict and in that place, and that those things are absolutely critical. And that we all have an opportunity to take part in building this better world together. And so the time to act is now. The time to get involved is now, especially for those crises that are hot, like Afghanistan, like Tigray and Ethiopia. This is the moment to step up and get involved. And you can certainly do that with Women for Women. We'd love to have you as a part of our community.
Fantastic. Okay. What top 3 actions would you like us to take?
So go to our website at womenforwomen.org.
Mhm.
That's an opportunity to get involved. You can sponsor a woman, you can contribute to the Afghanistan response or to the Conflict Response Fund. Many opportunities to engage in there. I think spread the word about what you're doing, not only about Women for Women, but about what you're doing. And I see someone's coming in with the question about sponsoring women from Afghanistan. Yes, you can sponsor women in Afghanistan if you're in the US. And I think the third, let's see, I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Oh yeah. Third action, but I think she may be saying if the woman is in coming to, I don't know that this is true, but coming to
yes.
the US from Afghanistan, is there some way to support them?
Oh, yes. So the most direct way is I would recommend actually Women for Afghan Women. I'm not sure if they do exactly a sponsorship program. You can also contact me through our website. We do have another possible way that we could arrange to connect someone to being a sponsor of an Afghan refugee in the US, even though that's not the primary work for Women at the moment. Since we're really focused on still staying and delivering for women in Afghanistan, we do have relationships with people that are organizing sponsorships for refugees. So that's a great, in fact, that can be my third thing, is consider how to welcome the refugee from Afghanistan or from anywhere else in your own community, because they are women who need sisters and support from all of us.
Yeah, we sure do. All right. Yeah. Any other actions? Did you want to complete any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think just being involved. There's so many different ways, from being present to people who are entering into your community, to engaging with organizations, to paying attention to what's happening in US foreign policy, and weighing in on the side of solidarity and support. I think all of those can be helpful ways to engage.
Very good. If you're in Oklahoma, just for reference, Shannon Warrens has got a leadership role in the community. She's got an interfaith group that I know is supporting the Afghan women that are coming over. So if you know her, you reach out to her. Okay.
That's
all right. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for those of you who are participating today in this conversation. It's an incredible moment to be engaged in the world. It's such a fast changing, dynamic place that we live right now. And I'm excited to think about how women working together can make a change that benefits all of us.
Absolutely. We are so powerful together. I don't think that we understand just how powerful we are, especially our economic power. It's amazing. All right. So I just want to let everybody know our upcoming guests. So and next Friday, we've got Gretchen Carlson. She's the co-founder of Lift Our Voices. And as you know, she's one of the folks at the very beginning of the Me Too movement. She's extremely powerful and influential, and I'm thrilled to death to have her on our show. On October 29th, we're going to do our networking session where you can meet other folks from across the globe, actually, and in the United States. On November 5th, we've got Sharon Berkman Fink, pardon me. She's the author and CEO of a book about perspectives and personalities, and she also runs Berkman International. And then on November 12th, I just got this guest yesterday, LaFerris Rigsby of LaFerris Incorporated. She is one of the enterprising women world's top entrepreneurs, and she's going to be here on November 12th. So we have new services on our website. Please be sure to go to pursepower.com. I post our guest every Monday for every Friday's session. We do this every Friday at 10 Central. I know it's hard to get attention these days, but we want to try to help you do that. You can download our Google Chrome extension from the website. You can put that on your Google Chrome browser, and as you shop online, it will show you which companies are in our directory. They're women-owned or women-led. And we want you to buy from women-owned and women-led companies. I hope you do support Women for Women International. Please like and share our social media pages. And please let your friends know about this broadcast every Friday at 10 Central. Okay, any parting words?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. You have a great weekend too. I hope to see everybody next Friday. It's going to be a big show. And remember, purse power, we have it. Let's use it. Thank you. Take care. Bye.